HOA Karen's racist son tried to steal my groceries in my own driveway. When I refused, she called 911 claiming I was threatening them. But here's what she didn't know. I'm the police commander who oversees her entire district. Watch what happens. When the officers she called show up and recognize their boss, you won't believe how this ends. Stay until the end to see Karen's face when she realizes who I am. Mash that like button and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane neighbor revenge stories. My name is Commander Marcus Thompson, and I've been with the Metropolitan Police Department for 23 years. I've worked my way up from patrol officer to commander, overseeing 3 precincts in our city. After years of apartment living, I finally saved enough to buy my dream home in Willowbrook Estates. A quiet, family-friendly neighborhood with tree-lined streets and well-maintained properties, or so I thought. The house was perfect. 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, beautiful backyard. The HOA fees were steep at $300 a month, but the neighborhood looked pristine. I figured it would be worth it for the peace and quiet after dealing with the chaos of police work. I moved in on a Saturday in late September. The weather was beautiful, crisp autumn air, leaves just starting to turn. I was unloading boxers when I noticed her, woman in her late 50s, blonde hair, styled in that speak to the manager cut, standing at the end of my driveway with a clipboard. She wore a bright pink tracksuit that somehow looked both expensive and tacky, oversized sunglasses, and white sneakers so pristine they'd clearly never seen him actual walk. "Excuse me?" she called out, not bothering to introduce herself. "Excuse me? Are you the new owner, or a mover?" I set down the box I was carrying and walked toward her, extending my hand. "Marcus Thompson? I'm the new owner. Just moved in today?" She didn't shake my hand. Instead, she looked me up and down, her lips pursing like she'd tasted something sour. "I'm Linda Carmichael, HOA President," she announced, tapping her clipboard. "I need to inform you of several violations already. I hadn't even been there 2 hours." "Violations?" I asked calmly. "Your moving truck is blocking the sidewalk. That's a $50 fine. Your garage door has been open for more than 30 minutes. That's prohibited after 8 a.m. Another $50? And you have boxers visible from the street, which violates our aesthetic guidelines. That's $75. I took a deep breath. 23 years of de-escalation training kicked in. "Mrs. Carmichael, I appreciate you introducing yourself. However, I'm actively moving in. The truck will be gone by evening, the garage will be closed once I've unloaded, and the boxers are temporary. I'm sure we can work together to keep the neighborhood looking great." Her face hardened. "The rules apply to everyone, Mr. Thompson. I don't care if you're moving in or not. I'll be sending you a formal notice. Make sure you pay within 14 days, or the fine's double." She turned on her heel and walked away without another word. That was my introduction to Linda Carmichael, HOA President, and, as I'd soon learn, the neighborhood tyrant. Over the next 3 weeks, I received 7 HOA violation notices. My grass was half an inch too long. $50 fine. I'd left my trash cans visible from the street for 2 hours past pickup time because I'd been called into work for an emergency. $100 fine. My car was parked in my driveway at a non-approved angle. $25 fine. I had a small decorative flag holder on my porch that wasn't on the approved fixtures list. $75 fine. Each notice came with Linda's signature and a smug smiley face drawn next to it. I asked my neighbors about her. Turns out, Linda had been HOA president for 8 years and ruled the neighborhood like a dictator. She'd forced 3 families to sell their homes after burying them in fines. She had allies on the HOA board who rubber-stamped everything she wanted. But that wasn't even the worst part. Linda had a son, Brandon, 26 years old, unemployed, living in her basement. And from what I observed, a complete nightmare. I first encountered Brandon on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd just gotten home from work still in my civilian clothes, since I don't wear my uniform when I'm not on official duty. I was carrying 2 bags of groceries from my car when I heard someone shout, "Yo, hold up." I turned to see a lanky guy in a stained tank top and basketball shorts jogging across the street toward me. His hair was greasy, his face had that puffy look of someone who drinks too much, and he had a cigarette dangling from his lips. "You got any food in those bags?" Brandon asked, not even introducing himself. "Excuse me?" I said. "Food, man. I'm hungry. My mom's on some health kick and there's nothing good in the house." He reached toward one of my bags. I stepped back. "These are my groceries. I don't know you." His face twisted into a sneer. "Wow. Rude mutts. I'm your neighbor, dude. You're supposed to help your neighbors. That's like the whole point of living here." "I'm happy to be neighborly," I said calmly, "but I'm not giving you my groceries. Have a good day." I turned and walked toward my front door. "Typical," Brandon muttered behind me, loud enough for me to hear. "Should have known? You people are all the same." I stopped, turned around slowly. "What did you just say?" Brandon smirked, taking a long drag on his cigarette. "You heard me? Always playing the victim. Someone asks you for help and you act like we're attacking you. I've dealt with people like Brandon my entire career. Entitled, ignorant, protected by privilege they didn't even recognize they had. But I was off duty, in my own neighborhood. and I wasn't going to let this escalate. "Stay away from me and my property," I said firmly, then went inside and locked the door. Through my front window, I watched Brennan flip me off before slouching back to Linda's house. I had a bad feeling this wasn't over. 2 days later on Friday evening, I stopped at the grocery store on my way home from work. I'd had a brutal 14-hour day dealing with a major incident, and I was exhausted. I just wanted to grab some food, go home, and crash. I loaded up my cart, chicken breast, vegetables, pasta, some frozen pizzas, a case of water, and a few other essentials, about $150 worth of groceries. When I got home, it was almost 8 p.m. The street was quiet, most people already inside for the night. I parked in my driveway and had just popped my trunk when I heard that voice again. "Yo, grocery man." Brandon was walking across the street again, but this time he wasn't alone. He had 2 friends with him. Both looked equally unkempt and intoxicated. They were laughing, punching each other's shoulders, clearly drunk or high or both. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from me?" I called out. "Staying by my car?" "Relax, man," Brandon said, his words slurring slightly. "We're just being friendly. Neighbors helping neighbors. Right, boys?" His friends laughed. Brandon walked right up to my car and looked into my trunk. "Damn, that's a lot of food. You having a party or something?" Brandon stepped back from my vehicle. I said in my command voice, the one I use when I need immediate compliance. He ignored me. "See, here's the thing. You were rude to me the other day. You embarrassed me. So I think you owe me an apology. And maybe some of this food is a, peace offering. I don't owe you anything." I said, "Back away from my car. Now." One of Brandon's friends, a guy with a shaved head and neck tattoos, stepped closer. "You heard him. He's trying to be nice. You got a problem with that?" I assessed the situation quickly. 3 men, all showing signs of intoxication, all displaying aggressive body language. I was trained for this, but I was also trying to avoid any situation that could escalate into violence or require me to defend myself physically. "The last warning," I said. "Leave my property immediately." Brandon laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Or what? You gonna call the cops?" He said the last word with dripping sarcasm. "Oh wait, let me guess. You probably think cops are racist, right? You probably hate cops." His friend snickered. "Actually," I said calmly, "I am a cop. I'm a police commander. And if you don't leave my property in the next 10 seconds, I'll have 3 patrol units here in under 2 minutes. For a moment, Brandon's smirk faltered, but then his liquid courage kicked back in. "Bullshit," he said. "You're not a cop. You don't even look like a cop. Nice try, though." He reached into my trunk and grabbed one of my grocery bags. And that's when I pulled out my badge and ID from my pocket. "I'm Commander Marcus Thompson, Metropolitan Police Department. Put the bag down and leave. This is your final warning." Brennan's face went red. Whether from embarrassment, anger, or alcohol, I couldn't tell. But instead of backing down, he doubled down. "Fake!" he shouted, loud enough that porch lights started coming on across the street. "This is fake. You probably bought this online. You're just trying to scare me because you're afraid." He shoved the grocery bag at me hard enough that items spilled onto the driveway. A jar of pasta sauce shattered on the concrete. "Brendine," a shrill voice cut through the night. Linda came running out of her house, her phone in her hand. "Brennan, get away from him. I'm calling the police. This man is threatening you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mrs. Carmichael," I said, keeping my voice level, "your son just attempted to steal my property and destroyed my groceries. I've identified myself as a police officer and asked him to leave multiple times." Linda's face twisted with rage. "Liar. You're not a police officer. You're a THUG who's threatening my son. Stay right there. I'm calling 911. And she did. Right? In front of me. 911? "Yes. I need help immediately. There's a man at 1247 Maple Drive who's threatening my son. He's claiming to be a police officer, but he's clearly not. He's aggressive and dangerous, and we need help right now." I stood there, groceries spilled around my feet, watching this woman literally call the police on the police commander. And I had to make a choice. I could identify myself to the 911 dispatcher. I could call this in through my own channels. But I realized something in that moment. This would be much more effective if I let it play out naturally. So I waited. Brandon and his friends backed up to the sidewalk, and Linda stood there with her arms crossed, a triumphant look on her face. "They're on their way," she announced. "You're going to jail. We'll see about that," I said quietly, and began picking up my groceries. 6 minutes later, 2 patrol cars pulled onto my street, lights flashing. 4 officers got out. 2 I knew very well. Officer Sarah Chun and Officer Marcus Rivera from the 2nd Precinct, directly under my command. The other 2 were from the 3rd Precinct, which I also oversaw. Linda rushed toward them immediately, talking fast and loud. "Officers, thank God you're here. This man has been harassing us for weeks. He moved in and has been nothing but trouble. Tonight he threatened my son and his friends and claimed to be a police officer, which is clearly a lie, and we want him arrested." Officer Chun's eyes went wide when she saw me. Officer Rivera actually stopped walking mid-step. Ma'am. Officer, Chun said carefully. Can you slow down and tell us exactly what happened? I already told you, Linda shrieked. You threatened my son. You tried to attack him. He's impersonating a police officer. That's a crime, Brendan chimed in, emboldened by the police presence. Yeah, he went crazy, man. We were just walking by and he started yelling at us, saying he was a cop and he was going to arrest us. I think he's on drugs or something. The two officers from 3rd Precinct didn't know me personally, but they looked uncertain, glancing between me and the Carmichaels. Officer Rivera approached me. Sir, do you have identification? I pulled out my badge, an ID wallet, handing it to him. He opened it, his face carefully neutral, though I could see him fighting a smile. This is Commander Thompson, Rivera announced loudly, turning to face the Carmichaels and the other officers. He's the district commander who oversees 2nd and 3rd Precincts. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's face went from red to white to purple in the span of 3 seconds. That's impossible, she sputtered. He can't be. You're lying to protect him. Officer Chun stepped forward, her voice professional but firm. Ma'am, I've worked under Commander Thompson for 4 years. I can personally verify his identity. Now would you like to tell us again what happened? Because if you filed a false police report, that's a crime. Brandon's face had gone ashen. His friends had already started backing away, trying to distance themselves. Brandon stumbled over his words. Let me tell you what actually happened, I said calmly. I walked the officers through the entire incident, Brandon's first approach days ago. Tonight's confrontation, the attempted theft, the destroyed property, and Linda's 911 call. I have a Ring doorbell camera that recorded the entire interaction, I added. You're welcome to review the footage. Officer Chun nodded. We'd like to see that, sir. No, Linda shouted. This is ridiculous. He's your boss. Of course you're taking his side. This is corruption. This is racism. He's targeting my son because of who we are. The irony of that statement, given Brandon's "you people" comment from earlier, was not lost on anyone present. Officer Rivera turned to Linda, his patience clearly wearing thin. Ma'am, Commander Thompson has offered video evidence of the incident. Do you have any evidence to support your claims? I don't need evidence. I'm the HOA President. I've lived here for 15 years. He just moved in and he's already causing problems. Being new to the neighborhood isn't a crime, Officer Chun said. However, filing a false police report is theft and destruction of property. Brendan finally found his voice. Wait. Nobody's filing charges, right? I mean, it was just a misunderstanding. We were just joking around. Right, Mom? Linda looked like she wanted to argue, but even she could see how badly this was going. We'll review the footage, Officer Rivera said, and then we'll determine if any charges will be filed. I pulled up my Ring app on my phone and showed the officers the video. It was crystal clear, Brandon and his friends approaching me warning them multiple times, Brandon grabbing my groceries, me showing my badge. The bag being thrown and sauce shattering, Linda calling 911 and making false statements. The two officers from 3rd Precinct watched the whole thing, their expressions growing more disgusted by the second. Mrs. Carmichael, one of them, said, You told the 911 dispatcher that Commander Thompson was threatening you. This video shows he never made any threatening moves. Your son, however, committed theft and destruction of property, and you filed a false report. I want to speak to your supervisor, Linda demanded. I am the supervisor, I said quietly. I'm the district commander. There are only 2 people above me in the entire department, the deputy chief and the chief himself. The reality finally seemed to hit Linda. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. However, I continued, I'm not interested in filing charges, yet I just want to be left alone to live in my house peacefully. I want all those bogus HOA fines reversed. And I want your son and his friends to stay away from me and my property, permanently. You can't make demands, Linda started. Ma'am, Officer Chun interrupted. Commander Thompson is being extremely generous. Based on this footage, we have grounds to arrest your son for theft, destruction of property, and potentially harassment. You could be charged with filing a false report and misuse of 911 services. I suggest you accept the commander's terms. Brendan was practically vibrating with anxiety. Mom, just say yes. Please. Linda's face was a mask of barely controlled rage, but she nodded stiffly. Fine. I need to hear you say it, I said. The HOA fines will be reversed, she ground out. Brandon will stay away from you. And, I prompted. And I apologize for the misunderstanding. It wasn't a real apology, but it would do. The officers took formal statements, photographed the broken jar and spilled groceries as evidence, and spent another 20 minutes on scene. Neighbors had gathered on their porches and lawns, watching the whole spectacle. Before they left, Officer Chun approached me quietly. Sir, if you need anything, documentation, follow-up, whatever, just call. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry you had to deal with this in your own neighborhood. Thanks, Chun. Just another day, right? She smiled. Not quite like any day at the station, sir. The patrol cars finally pulled away. Linda and Brandon returned into their house, and I was left to clean up my driveway and salvage what groceries I could. The next morning, I found a formal letter slipped under my door. It was from the HOA, signed by Linda, reversing all previous fines and violations. The letter was cold and impersonal, but it was in writing, which was all I needed. Over the next week, something interesting happened. Neighbors started approaching me. First was Robert, an accountant who lived 3 houses down. "Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for standing up to Linda. She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years. My wife and I got fined $2,000 last year over a mailbox dispute." Then came Maria, a teacher with 2 kids. "Is it true you're a police commander? That's amazing. Linda told everyone you were a dangerous criminal. But my husband looked you up online and saw you've won multiple commendations for community service." More and more neighbors came forward with their own Linda horror stories. Fines for children's toys being visible in yards. Fines for holiday decorations being up 1 day past the approved period. Fines for having the wrong shade of white on their shutters. "Why doesn't anyone challenge her?" I asked Robert one afternoon when we were talking over the fence. "She'll control the board," he explained. "Her best friend is the vice president, and her neighbor is the treasurer. They approve everything she does. Most people just pay the fines because it's easier than fighting. What about elections? Can't you vote her out? She controls those too. Only property owners in good standing can vote, which means anyone with outstanding fines can't participate. And she times all the big fines right before elections. It's a rigged system?" That's when I got an idea. I called for a special HOA meeting. According to the bylaws, any homeowner could request one with a petition signed by 10% of residents. Given what I'd learned about Linda's tactics, I easily got the signatures in 3 days. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse on a Tuesday evening. The room was packed, easily 60 people, the most attendance anyone could remember in years. Linda sat at the head table with her board, looking furious that she'd been forced into this meeting. I stood up to speak. "Hi everyone, I'm Marcus Thompson. Some of you know me, others have heard various things about me." That got some chuckles. "I moved here 6 weeks ago, and in that time, I've received over $500 in fines for violations that range from questionable to completely foul." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I've learned I'm not alone. Many of you have similar stories. The purpose of an HOA should be to maintain property values and create a pleasant living environment. Instead, this HOA has become a source of stress, financial burden, and harassment. If you have complaints, there's a proper process. Linda interrupted. "You can't just call a meeting and actually—" "I can," I said calmly, holding up the bylaws. Section 12, Paragraph 3. I followed the process exactly. "Now, I'd like to propose several changes to how this HOA operates." I spent the next 20 minutes outlining reforms, transparent financial reporting, limits on fines, a proper appeals process, term limits for board members, and open elections with better notice. People started applauding. Someone called for a vote to implement the changes immediately. Linda's face was bright red. "This is a coup. You can't just come in here and actually—" Mrs. Carmichael Roberts stood up. These are all within the homeowner's rights, according to our bylaws. I move to vote on Commander Thompson's proposals." "I second," Maria called out. The vote was 47-3. Only Linda and her 2 board allies voted against. Then someone else stood up. "I move to hold immediate elections for all board positions." "I second that." Another vote. This one passed 52-2. Even one of Linda's allies had switched sides. In a stunning turn of events, Linda was voted out as HOA president. Robert was elected as the new president, Maria as vice president, and a retired civil engineer named Tom as treasurer. Linda stood up, shaking with rage. "This is illegal. I'm going to sue all of you. You'll regret this." "Mrs. Carmichael," I said, quietly, "I'd advise against making threats in front of 60 witnesses." The meeting was conducted according to all bylaws and regulations. "But if you'd like to pursue legal action, I'll be happy to countersue for harassment and discrimination." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, Brandon following behind her like a lost puppy. The room erupted in applause. Here's where it gets really good. Remember how I mentioned Linda controlled the HOA with ridiculous fines and rules? Well, once Robert took over as president, he started actually enforcing all the rules, fairly and evenly. Turns out Linda's own house was in violation of about 15 different regulations she'd written herself but never followed. Her lawn was actually 1 inch too short according to her own guidelines about maintaining natural grass height. Fine, $50. She had decorative planters that exceeded the size limit she'd implemented. Fine, $75. Her house number wasn't the exact approved font. Fine, $25. She'd painted her mailbox post a shade of black that wasn't on the approved color list. Fine, $100. It went on and on. By the end of the first month, under new management, Linda had racked up over $800 in legitimate fines based on rules she had created. The new board also launched an audit of HOA finances. Turns out Linda had been using HOA funds for personal expenses, everything from her gym membership to her car payments, claiming they were community outreach and transportation for official HOA business. The total misappropriation was over $1,000 spanning 5 years. The board filed a report with local authorities. Since it involved possible fraud and embezzlement, the case eventually landed on my desk, ironically enough. I had to recuse myself due to conflict of interest, but I made sure it went to a detective I trusted. Linda was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and misappropriation of funds. The case is still ongoing, but her lawyer has been pushing for a settlement to avoid trial. As for Brandon, karma caught up with him too. Turns out one of his friends from that night, the one with the neck tattoos, was on parole. Being involved in an attempted theft, even one where no charges were filed, was a violation of his parole terms. His parole officer saw the police report. He went back to prison. When Brandon found out, he apparently blamed me and started posting threatening messages on social media that violated the informal agreement we'd made the night of the incident. I had Officer Rivera pay him a visit and explained that if Brandon didn't delete the posts and cease all contact, I'd be happy to press charges for the original theft, plus harassment, plus witness intimidation. The posts were deleted within an hour. I haven't heard from Brandon since. The best part? Linda and Brandon moved out 3 months after the special meeting. They sold their house and relocated to a neighborhood 2 towns over. I heard through the grapevine that Linda tried to join that neighborhood's HOA board. The president looked up her history, found the pending legal case, and rejected her application. It's been almost a year since all this went down, and Estates is a completely different neighborhood. Robert has been an excellent HOA president. Fines are still issued, but they're reasonable and fairly applied. There's actually a functional appeals process. People aren't afraid of their own HOA anymore. We've had 4 community events a summer: barbecue, a Halloween party, a holiday lights contest, and a spring cleanup day. Attendance has been incredible because people actually want to participate now, instead of avoiding HOA functions out of fear. My relationship with my neighbors is great. I helped Robert's teenage son with his college application essay about considering a career in law enforcement. Maria's husband and I play basketball at the community court on weekends. Tom and I grab coffee every couple weeks to talk about everything from home renovation to department policy. The kids on the block know me as Commander Marcus A., and they love hearing stories about police work, age-appropriate ones, of course. I've organized a few youth outreach events through the department, and we've done neighborhood safety workshops. I never wanted to be the guy who comes in and shakes everything up. I just wanted to live peacefully in my own home. But sometimes standing up to bullies, whether you're a police commander or not, is the only way to create real change. Linda taught me an important lesson. People who abuse power will keep doing it until someone stands up to them. It doesn't matter if it's an HOA president, a corporate executive, or anyone else. When good people stay silent, bad people win. I'm glad I didn't stay silent. I'm glad I let the situation play out instead of pulling rank immediately. And I'm especially glad that my neighbors found their own voices to demand better from their community leadership. This house has truly become my home now. Not because of the building, but because of the community we've built, one based on fairness, respect, and actual neighborliness, instead of fear and intimidation. And every time I pull into my driveway with groceries, I smile, remembering the look on Linda's face when she realized who she'd really called the cops on. Sometimes karma doesn't just work, it works overtime. If you loved this story of HOA justice, smash that like button and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane neighbor revenge stories. Drop a comment telling me about your worst HOA or neighbor experience. Your story might be featured in our next video. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Neighborhood Drama and Justice. Thanks for watching, and remember, stand up for yourself, because bullies only win when good people do nothing.